Um, Alright, thank you so much, guys, for deciding to look at this video. One of the first videos I intend to hopefully do in a long line. Currently, I'm working on web development. I'm taking a Udemy course on web development. I've just finished the CSS application. And to those who may be interested, I'd like to go over my recreation of the BBC site. I kind of followed along with the instructor and kind of did it ahead myself. Usually I would do something and then kind of watch him do it, maybe make adjustments if I was having trouble, etc. I do want to start off by saying that obviously this is just for my own educational purposes. The BBC company here has all rights to their website, and in no way am I trying to impersonate their content. So here I have the actual BBC website, and I'll just extend it out a little bit here. And you can see how I've managed to recreate most of the stuff on here. I've only done these three. But you have the hover effect. This is kind of different, but then you have the time, the layout, the picture. Then you have the side videos over here with the hover effects. You have the black highlight with the more bar. Then you have the health and all these white bars that kind of come across the screen based upon where your cursor's at. And then you have the colored bars at the top here that appear in the text field. So if we then go over to mine, you can see here it's identical. I managed to obviously get this effect not for the whole div, but just for this particular bar, which is nice. And then I have the effects for here, as well as the images here with the link effect and the no highlight effect over here. And you know what I just now noticed? I wonder if these probably, yeah, they do it. So my bad, I did forget to do that minor detail. But one thing I did do that the instructor actually didn't cover is I managed to get the white bar highlight effects, the black bar effect here, which that's supposed to be a cursor, and then the multicolored bar cursor effects over here, as well as obviously that, which is already there. And obviously the more interesting part here, I can go into the actual code that I used to give you an example of how I managed to do a lot of it. So obviously in the styling I have a lot of classes and IDs, much like he did. I'll start out with the layout. As you can see, I have the top bar div. Each tab is its own small div. This allows me to create a hover pseudo for that particular div, and basically to achieve the color effect, in the video he says it does have to be JavaScript. I did find an alternate way, which requires a bit of, it's more for effects than anything, but as you can see here, if you just use a hover pseudo for a border along the bottom 4 pixels, the same colors as what was on the actual BBC site, you can see the different colors here, then you essentially get the same effect. So if I go to Sport tab hover and say change this to dotted, which I think that's a valid, call me crazy. So now when I go to the Sport tab, you can see here it's a dotted yellow bar. So you can really create some cool outline effects with that just by using the hover class pseudo. No JavaScript is necessarily required. But yeah, so you can see I have a hover class for each and every single individual tab, and I probably could have cleaned that up better, because when I actually got down to the category menu, as you can see here, I had an outer and inner div. I actually just created a class for the individual divs for each tab, and that's primarily due to the fact that it's all white, which essentially it is the same thing, it's just it's not colored. And oops. And you can see that it's all white down there. So I was able to create a class. I probably could have done a class for these 3, but because these all had individual colors with the exception of sign in and shop, I did do individual tabs for those. And yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. So if I go back here to the thing, you can just see how I did it. So and then I cleared it, then you have the news, and then when we get down to the actual content, I have my main content outer div, and then the inner for the width effect. And then I have the technology header. A lot of this is very similar because at this point I was kind of following along just to make sure I did the content right. And then you have the link effects, the images for the clock, etc. And I have a span and all that. And then down here I did mine a little bit different than his because I actually at this point felt confident enough to do it on my own. So I created obviously a separate div for the watch listen section, and at that point I just set it to a fixed width. I created individual divs for each video. Originally was going to create individual IDs for the particular item, but I actually wound up using the same one, and it actually does work. IDs do work as across multiple divs, so I probably should change those to classes just for organization's sake. But as you can see, it's essentially the same content just repeated in each div. I literally just did the first one and copied it, and then the exception would be the content as far as the description, the picture that was used for the video, and then the IDs that are assigned to each one gives it the hover effect, gives it the appropriate sizing and positioning. And I have that somewhere along here. Here we go, so you can see the font weight and stuff. Now I did have to actually create a separate ID for this bottom one because this text is 3 rows. It had an interesting effect here, and I'll actually go ahead and show you. You can see that because this pushes it past the picture and the photo is actually floating left within this div that's floating right, this goes below it and then essentially goes to the very left alignment of the div. So my quick and cheap way to fix that was to just give that last particular text span its own ID and then just use a positioning method to literally move it over by 130 pixels to where it lines up perfectly with that. So I hope that this short and probably boring to most people video was interesting to some, so that they could see my particular layout. As far as the main thing that I just wanted to let people know here was the hover effects that can be used with pseudo classes to achieve highlighting via border effects. So hopefully you guys like this video, and I hope that everybody else is loving this course so far as much as I am, and can't wait to go further. Thanks for watching.